Y'all, look at my dog. Filthy. He definitely got in the pond. Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to my greenhouse. We're starting seeds today. Are you excited? I'm excited. Can you feel my excitement? I'm using a different kind of soil this year. I've used one brand for the last handful of years, and I'm not sponsored by any like soil. I buy all this stuff. I don't have anybody that sends me anything. I'm trying Fox Farm. I've always had good success with their products. So if they wanted to send me something, Fox Farm, how you doing? But I'm currently just going and buying them at the local garden center. I used a different brand. I'm not trying to like put anybody on blast or anything. I am not 100% sure that brand of soil has been my issue. So I don't want to be like negatively speaking about something that I can't prove was the problem. A lot of gardening products post-COVID, the demand has been high and the quality has not always been consistent. And I have noticed some changes in the soil I've used. In the last few years, I've really struggled with plants being stunted, but it could be other things. So I'm just gonna try this year doing something different. I do start all my seeds in potting soil instead of seed starting mix. That's just my personal choice. Seed starting mix is not bad. It's really light and airy, but it doesn't have any food for your plants in it. So if you start seeds in seed starting mix, you're gonna need to pot them up within like a couple weeks, and you need to feed them if you leave them in that seed starting mix, or else there's no nutrition. My fan's kicked on. I had to go turn them off. It is fairly warm in here right now, but I like it. So Maya is still working on the little greenhouse that we're putting up by our house. And you'll notice I'm not in it. I'm starting these in here right now. It's actually fairly warmish right now, and it's not getting super cold for the next few nights. So these seeds will be okay out here, but as soon as he finishes that greenhouse, I'm gonna move them down there because we have cold weather moving back in next week. And I'm just gonna keep these in the little greenhouse by my house. I had several people asking for clarity, like, why would you build another greenhouse when you have this greenhouse? Because this greenhouse is absolutely awesome. It's one of my favorite places to be. This ceiling's really high, and just a lot of heat goes up this way, which means that even when you're running these heaters in here, which those are propane space heaters, those eat through fuel and they're not cost effective to run. I'll do it if it means saving my plants, but I don't want to spend, you know, $150. And that's not even really for much of a season. It's like for a month whenever it's getting really cold. All of that to say, people have been saying, well, you could do this and you could build this. Well, here's the problem. It was 82 degrees last week, and it was over 100 degrees in here, which means if I build a bunch of structures or create a bunch of stuff to try to trap all the heat in, and it works, that will be great for our freezing nights. But the fact that 3 days later, it might be very hot during the day, if we have to take all that stuff down, you kind of have to question, you know, the time commitment. So that was sort of our thought process. And well, let's get a really shored up small greenhouse for these early parts, late winter, the early parts of seed starting. Everything's small at that point. So we're just calling that the nursery greenhouse. Think, you know, little babies that need extra care. And then we can leave this one as is, because this functions perfectly once it's not freezing hard at night anymore. It can handle a very mild freeze, especially if it's been sunny during the day. But if we get like a few gray days in a row and like a really hard freeze, it's going to freeze in here, or cost a lot to keep it from freezing. I've got all these trays. I get my trays from Bootstrap Farmer. I didn't buy any new stuff this year. I had plenty of stuff. These things last for years. I'm not planning on starting a bunch of extra plants this year to try to sell anything. I'm really trying to rein myself in, keep my gardens simple and enjoyable, focusing on growing my favorite things and just enjoying the season. With that being the case, like, I have plenty of stuff to do that. But I'm just prepping 2 trays, filling soil up in these cups. They're in bottom watering trays. I'm gonna water these first, and then we'll start putting seeds in the soil. I don't know where my little sprayer is. It's all right. if I go looking for stuff, like if I'm in the middle of the task and it's like, oh, I don't know where the sprayer is, and I go looking for it, these seeds will not get planted today. I know myself far too well. I am easily distractible. if I go looking around the garden for something like that, I'll be pruning roses or something completely off task before I know it. All right, so I just watered the top of the soil a little bit, and then I'm also filling in these trays, which I could have done that afterwards, but it's fine. I'll just be careful when I move them. So I just filmed the 2 videos where I am talking about what varieties of tomatoes and peppers I am growing this season, and I shared how my list is significantly shorter than it usually is. Because as I said, I'm focusing on my favorite things and the things that I know work well. That being the case, I'm about to start all of the tomatoes for my garden in this one tray, because what I do is I always start all of one variety. I'll start several seeds in one container. I use these pots. I think these are 3-inch pots from Bootstrap Farmer. And when they get their first true leaves, I'll separate them out into individual 2.5-inch pots. I'm using some new stakes this year. These are wooden. I don't know how that's gonna go, because when I've tried to use popsicle sticks and stuff in the past, usually the words blur. But I think it'll be fine for this purpose at least, because I'll be separating these and re-tagging them probably in like 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Just really probably depends on what the weather does here. But what I always do is I just get all my labels, label all of my containers, and then I go behind and tuck the seeds in. So, how are you? How are you doing? We're kind of getting into the thick of winter time. I know a lot of you still have quite a ways to go before you get to this point of starting seeds or, you know, doing the fun stuff. And I know that wintertime can be hard for a lot of people. So I hope that right now, if you are not in the place of seed starting, maybe you can pour yourself a cup of tea and hopefully enjoy a little warmth through the screen from my greenhouse. Probably some of my favorite videos throughout my years, I got my seeds in a sandwich bag, have been these, where we sit and chat while starting seeds. I've done lots of content over the years that really like details seed starting and all of the like nitty-gritty information, and honestly today I don't know that I'm in the right headspace to give the most cohesive tutorials, but I will find some links if you guys want like really cohesive tutorials with all the breakdowns of all the different things. Here's my great temptation. I have seeds. These are Italian heirlooms. I don't know if you will see this video first or if you'll see my variety videos first. Those take a while to edit because I usually get pictures of all the different varieties and put them up. But I'm not gonna go over in depth all the different varieties today and why I'm growing them, because I just did that separately. But the temptation for me right now is, okay, like how many seeds should I drop in this cup? Because if I put 20 seeds in here, I'm gonna wanna separate it into 20 plants. I'm not going to have the self-control to be like, oh, I don't need that many. So I'm gonna try to be very moderate in what I sow. I think this year I'm gonna grow about 100-ish plants. That's enough for fresh eating. That's enough. And by fresh eating, I don't mean just like eating tomatoes. I mean like cooking a lot with tomatoes during the season, making lots of salsa and sauce and different things like that during the season. And then that's enough to do some preservation. And the idea is, when I say some preservation, I want to put up diced tomatoes and some salsa and some different things, and the goal is going to be is that I'll put up salsa, and what we put up is what we'll use, but then the rest of the year we're just not going to eat salsa, because we're going to eat a whole lot of salsa when it's in season. So when I say I'm doing some preservation, I'm just not trying to be like, oh, we need to eat salsa 3 times a week year round, because I just don't feel like we do. I feel like having some put up as a treat for out of season is good, but for the most part, when it's the middle of the winter, you know, we'll pull it out when it's a party or, you know, for the occasional treat, but we don't have to just have a constant supply of salsa. It's okay to go without things. I think there's been some confusion. I've had several people comment like, why would you do that? Why would you make yourself dependent on grocery store food? Like, when I'm saying we're going to eat seasonally year round, I'm going to continue planting the garden, so we're continuing to eat seasonally. So that really just looks like eating something, honestly, as much as you could possibly want while it's in season. And then you're kind of ready for a break from it. Because, I mean, literally, we'll eat salsa every single day throughout tomato season. Every single day. It's the food of summer. And then when the tomatoes are starting to like go away, we'll just won't eat salsa for a while. And then usually like into the winter, man, I'm really craving some salsa. Then we'll tap into the cans we have. But I'm just not trying to put up tons of food. I'm trying to just be more mindful of seasonal eating. Speaking of putting up food and why we do things, there's something that I kind of want to talk about. I've actually been thinking about this a lot. I'm going to do my very best to just be completely frank, honest, and talk to you as I would talk to a close friend that I know knows my heart and that I care about deeply, because that is genuinely what I try to bring. I think that many of you know that. I get comments fairly regularly. Been seasons that it's been more frequently. You know, I've been making content now for 10 years, but where people kind of start pushing me to make like a political stance or, you know, about whatever issue it is that they're asking me to speak on. And I make a very conscious choice to not make my channel political. But I want to explain to you where I'm coming from, because I have always felt like that this was really important, and I feel like it's still important, and I think it will continue to be important. Little story, analogy, if you will. A handful of years ago, I was seed starting, and it was a Sunday, and my local garden center or co-op where I used to buy the soil that I would buy was closed. And so I didn't have the options that I would normally go to, so I went to Sam's Club and I bought a big bag of Miracle Grow soil. I got back to my house, this was back when we lived in Arkansas, and I was getting ready to start seeds, and I had a friend that came over, and I was unloading this bag of soil into my greenhouse. And I was like, hey, if you don't mind, go grab that bucket over there. And I cut the bag open and I poured it in a tub. And I took the bag and I went and walked it over and threw it in the dumpster and came back, and I was like, and they said, oh, does that make it easier? And I was like, well, it makes it easier, but I wasn't trying to put that bag in a video. And they were like, why are you hiding that you use that brand? And I was like, no, it's not that I'm hiding that I use that brand. The thing is like Miracle Grow is a huge corporate brand. You know, they have a lot of products that I don't think are necessarily beneficial for the earth, and on a corporate level I think that they've been involved with some different things that I don't necessarily agree with, some different initiatives that I don't think have been necessarily great for the earth. But you know, I can go buy a bag of something on a Sunday whenever my normal store's closed, and I've just cast a $10 vote for that thing. I spent $10. It's, you know, it's not a make or break deal. But when I put that on my channel and it becomes, people look at it and they go, oh, that's what Jess uses. That's what I should use too. This is a platform. It has influence. I have influence. And if 1,000 people go buy that thing because they think that it is my recommendation, now I've cast a $10,000 vote. Now I have taken just a one-off thing on a day that I just went and got what I could, and my $10 vote has been amplified. And so I didn't want to do that. So I just stuck in a bucket and planted my seeds. And I get this question sometimes where people kind of start going, why don't you speak about this? Why don't you? And I would like for you to know where I am coming from. I don't have a lot of faith in any political system. It's not something that I have ever looked to. I have always prayed for political leaders, every single one, doesn't matter what party they come from. I've always prayed for government, for wisdom, and also for justice. Like, I've always been that person. That's always been my stance. I do vote. I'm entitled to cast a $10 vote. Like, I am entitled to just vote like one person does. And when it comes to what I have been given the opportunity to amplify with this camera, I'm not interested in amplifying ideology and system that I don't put faith in. My great hope, and what I feel like is important to amplify here, what I feel like is important to share, is the truths that I choose to live my life by. I believe in local community. I believe in relationship. I believe in responsibility for yourself. I believe that it is worth making it your life's work and your greatest passion to grow food and care for your family. Obviously, I could tell you any number of things, but if you look at the fruit of my life and you want to know what are you about, I'm doing it. I'm showing you this is what I'm about. And truly, I feel like in a world where there's so many words, many times there are words said from amplified platforms that simply do not match the fruit of a person's life. And I am of the mind that you preach a much louder message with your life than with your mouth. And I just don't have anything to say about all of that. I don't have anything that I could say to you that I am not already saying 1,000 times over with the life that I am choosing to live. And there are a lot of things that it's interesting. I've said the same things over and over the course of years as different presidents have sat in the White House. And the reactions of them, the negative reactions to the things I'm saying, if I'm saying, hey, you need food security, it's interesting to me how people will come up in the comments and go, oh, that must mean you think XYZ about XYZ. And I'm like, you're making a lot of assumptions here. I actually just think you need food security. I think having food security and having food that you're growing in your yard will make your life better. Makes you healthier, makes your mind healthier, makes your body healthier. It's good. It's good to raise families in touch with where their food comes from. It's good to have control over your food sourcing as much as possible. And it's limited on how much that's possible. Different limitations for different people in different seasons. I mean, I think that in all of history, I love studying history. I love, learning about the Depression and the World Wars and the different eras where people having the wherewithal to grow their own food made all the difference for them and for their families and for their communities. I've had that fascination since I was a kid. My pappy used to tell me stories about how when the Depression came, his family raised rabbits, and the people in town used to walk out to his family, and he would go out and he would have to dispatch and clean the rabbits because his family actually thrived through the Depression. They had always been very poor. They were country folks during a time where living in town was a status symbol. And they actually thrived through the Depression because they'd been growing food before it, and they grew food through it, and then they grew food after it. I remember being amazed at that story when I was a prepubescent child, being like, that's how you do it. I want to grow food too. I mean, this heavily weighed in to my desire to do what I now do. Resilience, having a life that is resilient, means being elastic. It means being able to stretch and mold and not lose your form and not lose the essence of what you are. So I would encourage you, if you are feeling vastly overwhelmed, or you're feeling confused, or even if you're feeling incredibly triumphant, if you're feeling celebratory, it doesn't matter what you're feeling on what's going on in the political world. You can have whatever feelings you're going to have about that, but there should also be what you're doing. And I do actually believe that should be happening regardless of what you're feeling about what's going on. The desire to build a resilient life means that you show up faithfully, you sow and you reap and you cultivate and you build and you continually steward. And that happens regardless to what's going on outside of your life and outside that which you have control over. I think this is my greatest issue with all of the political back and forth, is that I'm seeing so much regurgitated noise, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and I have felt that no matter what has happened. I mean, but the whole time I feel the question of like, what are you doing though? What are you doing? Because I don't think that cultivating relationships with each other and with the earth and taking responsibility for the needs that we have is ever going to be a bad idea. Like, that you can't fail with that. It doesn't matter what is happening. You cannot fail with deciding today, in this one and only life that I have, and with today, with what I have control over, I'm going to cultivate relationship and responsibility. And then whenever things do get noisy, because that is like my laser focus, and I'll start feeling a little jostled by people being like, hey, say something. What do you think? Where, you're awfully silent, or you're this, or you're that, or they make assumptions or different things. And I'm just like, my hands are kind of full right now. That's really where I'm at. Like, my hands are kind of full. My hands are full of seeds. My hands are full of soil. My hands are full of my children and my home and our food. And the beautiful thing is that there's a lot of security in having hands full of that stuff. Throughout the last several years, any time the noise has ramped up, shouting threats of there won't be enough, well, my hands are full. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we were actually talking about this subject and like being a content creator in such a divided world, and just the stress of like, I really actually don't think we were designed for this much input. It's a lot. I said, this is the same message I've been saying this whole time. And he said, yeah, but you're always so apologetic about it. And really, it's just that the truth is I hate feeling misunderstood, because I've not always felt like I'm clear at communicating. And so I've experienced a lot of relationships where a person did not understand me. The thing that I'm really coming to appreciate, not everybody's going to understand. That doesn't mean that you're not understandable. Sometimes that means that they can't understand. Like, just because you may be choosing to get your hands full of something and somebody is accusing or somebody is belittling or someone is dismissing, maybe you've got the dream of growing food and you're dealing with the early season of the backlash. I mean, the number of times I used to hear people being like, you can buy that at the store, and dismissing what I was focusing on. I mean, I dealt with a ton of that. Well, just because they can't understand, that doesn't define the value of what I'm doing. It doesn't define the validity of what I'm saying. It doesn't define the clarity of my vision. It doesn't define the clarity of my purpose. It defines their capacity to understand. And right now, when we're in this super hot, divisive political climate, where frankly, I think the biggest thing that is at risk is just the capacity for humanity to connect and see the value of humanity. I mean, like, it is vastly important that we can maintain relationship. That is huge. Literally, and I usually try to mark things as devotionals when I go off into this, but literally, like, look at the Bible. God created everything, and the one thing he looked at and said was not good was that Adam was alone. Everything is in relationship. The whole earth is in relationship. So when the capacity for us as humanity to maintain relationship is under incredible attack, and there is divisiveness at every corner, it is really, 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 really important that we check ourselves. And if nothing else, we can say, you know what, I can't engage in that and maintain my capacity for connection. That's okay to say, I can't do that. I'm gonna go get my hands full of the things that are my true values that matter no matter what. I'm gonna go put my focus on what ultimately is my purpose. And if people don't understand that, that doesn't mean that what you're doing is not valid. It's important to grow food. It's important that we can have relationship. It's important to take responsibility for our needs. Well, my camera died, and I have pretty well lost my train of thought now. Maya brought me out a new battery so that I can finish. but I think that's probably just as well. I think I more or less said what I meant to say. It is definitely an interesting time to be alive. This last several years has definitely been an interesting time to be alive. And I am an eternal optimist. There's not been a period of the last several years that I have come to a point where I've felt without hope. And I think partially it's just coming from a place that I've coped with trauma in my life. I've learned to cope with things and got a lot of healing for that. But ultimately, like, the thing that's always brought me the most peace is to look at what's in my hand today and what I can do today and what I have control over today. I can say that mindset of being fully present in today, not reactive because of what's happened to me in the past and not fearful of what's going to happen to me in the future, but staying firmly planted in right now and responding to right now rather than reacting, that has been a great asset to building a beautiful life. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. That's what I want to say. That's my $10,000 vote. You know, like, it's that. It's look at what's in your hand. Look what's right in front of you. And if for a single moment you become paralyzed from doing something empowering now and getting your hands full of something now, but because of what's happened before, what you fear may happen in the future, you're being robbed. Like, that's my $10,000 vote. There's a lot that you cannot be in control of. A whole lot. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, y'all are trying to control him. You know, they're fighting with their brother. I'm like, you're trying to control him. They're afraid of something that's going on, or they're bothered by something that's going on. And I'm like, I understand. That's really hard. That's really scary. But you can't control that. On a good day, you can control yourself. On a bad day, you're gonna really screw that up. But like, on a good day, the only thing I can control in this whole world is myself. So like, if that's my focus, my hands are full. That's a lot. It's a lot to do. Anyway, seeds. Let's grow a garden. Oh, guys. Well, I put all my seeds in. That was it. All of the tomatoes for this season, right here. Except for the ones that fall into my cart at a plant sale. I do know, realistically, though I am paring everything back, there will be a bit of variety that comes simply from impulse buys. There always is. It will end up happening. And there are a couple of tomatoes that like there are a few that weren't on my list that when I think about them, I'm like, if I happen to see one of those plants for sale, I might get like one. I don't know. What do you think? I've got 14 varieties right here for my tomatoes. How many do you think it'll end up actually being? We'll see. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today and for, you know, listening to what I have to say and putting any value on it. It really does. It's not lost on me that really is an honor, and it's something that I don't take lightly. I don't ever want to add to the noise. You know. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I bless you. Until next time.